How do you see this Irish border issue resolved? The agreement reached in December effectively parks the question, but doesn't deal with it. Is that correct?
Not quite. Well, first of all, I think it's important to say that Brexit is a British policy. It's not something that Ireland decided to do, and we regret the decision that they've made, but we respect it. But whatever the United Kingdom does, Ireland remains at the heart of Europe. We're founder members of the single market, of the Eurozone. It's where we belong, at the heart of Europe, and that's where we're going to stay. The agreement that we came to back in December it contains an assurance from the UK government that no matter what, there won't be a return to the hard border. There is a border in Ireland, but it's a political border. There's no barriers to trade or the movement of people. And when we say we want to avoid a hard border, what we mean is we want to avoid any new barriers to the free movement of people and free trade. And we believe, in fact, that can be best achieved by a very close relationship between the United Kingdom and the European Union. And I heard Chancellor Merkel saying the other day that the relationship that the United Kingdom can have with the European Union is as close as they want. And I very much echo those sentiments. But of course, there's a proviso in that, and it does require the United Kingdom to understand and appreciate fully that it's not possible to cherry pick. You can't have the benefits of European Union membership and access to the single market and all those things and not bear the responsibilities and obligations.
But when you talk about the agreement, the assurances of the Prime Minister of the UK, does that need to be translated into a legal agreement in the withdrawal text, and how difficult will that be?
The short answer is yes. What we had in December is a joint report agreed between the United Kingdom and the European Union. And Ireland is part of the 27. We negotiate as part of the European Union, and we were very happy with that outcome, and it contains the commitments that we sought and needed. So now the next thing is to translate that into the legal text in the withdrawal agreement, and we expect that to be done. And also we want to begin negotiations on the transition phase, because I think it's in the interests of business and of citizens that there is a transition phase that allows people to adapt to any permanent changes that may take place.
So when you talk about that transition phase, Ireland has always pushed for a 5-year transition phase. The EU has said 18 months. Do you believe once we're in the transition phase that could be extended?
I think what's crucial to it in terms of the length of time is what the new relationship is going to be. So if the new relationship is going to be one that's very close, well, then the transition phase actually in many ways can be quite short. But if it's going to be a hard Brexit or a fairly hard Brexit, which would involve major changes, well, then I think the transition phase would then need to be longer. So I don't think it's possible to answer that question definitively now. But in terms of what we're speaking about as the European Union, we're talking about something in the region of 2 years.
When are you expecting to have more details on actually what this new relationship would look like, the proper details?
Well, we hope to have more details towards the end of February when the European Council meets again. And of course we meet again in March. But I think what would be most helpful would be a better understanding of what new relationship the United Kingdom would like. So what we've heard for a long time is we want relationship to be as close as possible, as deep as possible, and those are encouraging words. But we'd like to see that fleshed out. And as Chancellor Merkel said, the relationship can be as close as the UK wants it, provided there's a understanding and appreciation that with access to the single market, with access to all of the great things that come with the European Union, there are costs and obligations and responsibilities.
Taoiseach, what are the chances that Brexit never actually happens?
I can only work on the basis that it is happening. A referendum occurred in the United Kingdom. People voted by a narrow majority for Brexit. I'm not sure that constitutes a majority for a hard Brexit. It was very narrow, and of course Scotland, Northern Ireland, London voted to remain. But my role as Taoiseach Prime Minister of Ireland, as a European head of government, really is to deal with the facts as we find them. And for so long as it's the position of the United Kingdom that they are leaving, we have to operate on that basis. If there's a change of mind, that's entirely up to them, and it's not for us to put them under any pressure in that regard.
You said that you wanted a deep deep free trade agreement between the UK and the EU following Brexit. Are there divisions between the European countries about what exactly that means, and whether, for example, financial services would be included in it?
I think there are certainly different perspectives. Britain is one of our largest trading partners. We actually trade now more with the Eurozone than with Britain, but it's next door. It's still really important, particularly for goods and merchandise. So we're very enthusiastic about having a free trade agreement and a customs union. I know a lot of the countries in Central and Eastern Europe would have a similar view. Other countries that are quite far away from the United Kingdom mightn't be as concerned. But I think, again, the crucial issue around financial services does kind of put your finger out in some ways, because of course the City of London would like access to financial services and financial markets, but what is the UK going to give in return?
So what would you do?
Open up?
So what would you ask in return for access to financial services?
Oh well, I would like to see the United Kingdom remain in the single market and the customs union. Now they've said that they don't want to do that, and I respect that. But perhaps we can negotiate something that isn't very different to that.
So what kind of agreement do you think we'll get at the end of the day? Is it a Norway or a Canada plus?
It's difficult to speculate. I think it'll be a new agreement. It'll be an agreement between the United Kingdom and the EU. And the United Kingdom is a big place. It's 60 million people, so it's difficult to compare it to Norway, which is a relatively small country like Ireland, or a country like Canada, which is on a different continent. So I think it'll be a specific agreement for the United Kingdom. But of course, as Ireland, we want that to be as close as possible. So we would have it Norway plus, but I think we need to get into the detail now as to what that means. It's been quite some time now since this referendum happened, and we really need to get down and dirty with the detail.
Taoiseach, I want to talk a little bit about Apple. So the Apple case has been very well documented, but Ireland has still not collected the money from Apple. Why?
Well, we will collect it. What we have to do in order to collect it is set up an escrow account. That's been established now, and we anticipate collecting the money in Q2 of this year. So we will collect the money, but we are absolutely disputing the case. The case, as you know, is not quite a tax case, it's a state aid case, and the allegation is that Ireland had some sort of special deal with Apple, and we didn't. And we believe we can prove that in the courts.
Okay, but do you think you'll collect the money before proving it in the courts, or are you trying to delay it so that?
Oh no, that the court cases could take many years. We'll be collecting the money from Q2 of this year, so we'll collect the money in advance and hold it.
Is there a reputational damage to Ireland attached to this?
It certainly hasn't been helpful. Ireland is a country that has a very clear tax policy. We've had it for a very long time now. Our corporate tax rate is 12.5%. It's not going up, it's not going down. And unlike a lot of other countries, there's very few, get-out clauses and exceptions and credits. Other countries have a higher tax rate on paper, but actually they collect less. And the OECD figures prove that. So it certainly hasn't been helpful. Ireland has got some bad press as a result of it. Yeah. But I don't think that's fair. We're really one of the most transparent countries when it comes to tax. The fact that we have a rate that is low, simple and transparent.
But Commissioner Vestager was also saying she wants to sue, actually, Ireland over not collecting the payment. Do you expect that to go away?
I don't think it'd be necessary, precisely because we're in the process now of setting up that escrow account. We've brought agreement with Apple on how it will operate, and we expect to start receiving money into that account within months. So second quarter of this year isn't that far away.
The Trump administration certainly seems to be talking quite a lot about Ireland in some press conferences, with also alleging that you would reduce your tax rate further. Have you had any dealings with the Trump administration?
We're in contact, all the time, largely through embassies and other officials. I'll be there, though, in March, and we'll have a chance to meet and speak with President Trump. And what I can absolutely assure everyone is that our corporation profit tax will not be going up or going down. It's 12.5%. It has been for a long time. Welcome the fact that other countries are now emulating our success and bringing their rates down. But the one thing that we offer that other countries don't is that absolute certainty. All four major political parties in Ireland support that policy. So when it comes to investors, they get the kind of certainty that they just couldn't get in countries where politics can swing so much from left to right, and so it's almost overnight. So
does the tax plan, though, in the US affect the popularity of your tax?
It brings it closer, but we don't think that's going to have a major impact on us. We welcome the fact that the US and France and other countries are copying our policies, and we think that's evidence of the fact we made the right decisions in relation to taxation. We don't think it's going to make a huge difference, and bear in mind, investment in Ireland isn't all about tax. We're in the single market, we're English speaking, we're in the Eurozone, we have a really good pool of talent, we have a good education system. So there are lots of reasons why our economy is growing, why companies invest in Ireland, and tax is and was only ever one part of that.
Do you have any estimates on how many bankers you could attract to Ireland because of Brexit?
In the thousands. And again, of course, that's going to depend on the shape of Brexit. But already there have been some big announcements. Toronto Dominion, for example, Barclays, Bank of America, lots of others are increasing and growing their operations in Dublin.
Chichak, when we heard on Monday from President Trump due to arrive here any minute in Davos, he was talking about tariffs. He was talking about tariffs on solar panels, on washing machines. What does that mean for Europe? Can actually Europe benefit if China, for example, says, you know what, instead of investing in the U.S. Because I don't like the protectionist stance or the kind of optics coming out of that country, I invest in Europe?
That's a possibility, but I really hope the United States doesn't go down the road of protectionism and restricting free trade. One of the reasons why America is so successful, why it is such a great economy, is because it embraced free enterprise in the free market, and I wouldn't like to see them moving away from that. And one of the points that I'll be making certainly when I'm in America is that trade and investment actually goes both ways. There are 100,000 people, Americans in 50 states, employed by Irish companies, and investment and trade and jobs go both ways, and free enterprise and the free market make us all better off. But of course it's the role of governments, therefore, in that context, to make sure that it also delivers fairness.
But is there anything that Europe can do? We were also hearing from the Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin yesterday saying, weaker dollar means good for America because of the exports. Are we entering a currency war phase?
I don't believe so. But as far as Europe is concerned, the Europe is working well. There are advantages in having a euro that is relatively strong as well. Bear in mind, it keeps inflation down and interest rates down. So I think having a strong currency has its benefits too.
Taoiseach, I want to go back to some of the ban on the banker bonuses in Ireland and pay caps at the state-owned banks. Will that change anytime soon?
No plans to change at the moment. They were put in for a particular reason while our banking system was being restructured, and it's still the case that some of the banks are in state ownership. So what we're slowly doing is re-privatising them again, and we might look at it then at a later stage, but they remain for now.
What is the question you get asked the most here in Davos? I don't know what your focus is on. Was there a surprise since coming into office?
Well, I've only just arrived, so so you're one of the first people I've met and spoken to. But last night I had the pleasure to attend the Gates dinner and meet with Malala Yousafzai and a lot of people who are involved in international development and trying to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of the things that I think I probably didn't realize about Davos, I thought it was political leaders and business leaders. There's a lot of people here inside the tent who are activists, who are talking about international development and global cooperation, multilateralism and a fairer world. And I think that's a real positive from my point of view.
Does Europe, we were speaking to Madame Lagarde, the managing director of the IMF earlier on, and she was concerned about the inequality that almost becomes harsher and harsher every year that goes by in Europe. What do you think Europe will become in 4 or 5 years? Are we going to see more integration, where inequality be a little bit more eradicated than in other parts of the world, such as the US?
You mean inequality between the states?
Between, the states are also the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, well, I come from Ireland, obviously, where we had a very bad recession and a financial crisis, but for the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years in fact, poverty is falling, deprivation is falling, and income inequality is actually narrowing. So there are good examples of European countries, particularly in Northern Europe, where you can achieve greater equality within your country. In terms of within the European Union itself, I think what's really going to be important is us ensuring that we have a good European budget, that we can continue to support countries in Central Eastern Europe to build up their infrastructure, also support the common agricultural policy, which gives us safe and secure food supplies. And Ireland is now a net contributor to the European Union budget, but we benefited so much from structural funds in helping to unlock our economic potential. We now feel the same should happen for Central Eastern Europe. And also we need to give the countries of the Western Balkans a pathway towards membership by bringing in those countries, Albania, some of the states that used to be part of Yugoslavia. I think that's the best way that we can secure them.